Hello, today on Nurture Store we're talking about printmaking, which is a fantastic art technique for your children to try. By the end of this video you'll have 10 great ideas for different printmaking projects that you can enjoy with your children using just simple materials. You might like to pick one idea to try this week, and you can also combine them over several weeks to make a broad art practice that lets your children develop their artistic skills using several different interesting techniques and materials to become creative and accomplished artists. This video is part of our art lessons playlist. All the ideas on Nurture Store are creative and hands-on, but they're also easy to set up and completely doable whether you're teaching a whole class in a school or you're at home with your kids. The Nurture Store website has hundreds of ready-made art lessons for you to use with your children, and today I'm going to share some of the printmaking projects with you. So as you think about what to teach your children this coming week, enjoy watching as I'll be sharing ideas for all ages, variations to develop the art lessons, and details of where to get the lesson plans, the famous artist bios, and all the links to pictures of the art mentioned so that you can show them to your children. If you're new here, I'm Kathy, the founder of Nurture Store. And Nurture Store is a great resource for you if you're teaching children. You can think of Nurture Store as your teaching fairy godmother, as I give you ready-made lesson plans, activity ideas, and lots of great resources to save you time and help you teach better. At Nurture Store, we're all about learning through play and hands-on activities to raise happy, confident, and skilled children. If this sounds like your way of teaching, something your children would enjoy, please subscribe to the channel so you'll see all the new resources I'll be sharing. Printmaking is a great art project for all ages of children, whether you're used to doing lots of art or if you're complete beginners. You don't need to be a confident artist yourself to lead this with your children, and we're only using basic affordable art materials to make these projects, so they're suitable for everyone. You can all have a go. So just join in, pick an idea to try this week, and here are 10 projects that you could choose from. Printmaking is a great first art experience for babies. It's a wonderful hands-on process where the very youngest children can explore using their senses of sight and touch. And depending on the recipe that you've chosen to make the paint, if you like, for this printmaking exercise, your children can also explore their sense of smell and their sense of taste. And you can enjoy the art just for the process of doing it, or you might like to press a piece of paper onto the top of your child's painting to take a print of their art. For very young children, or any children who are likely to try a taste of the finger paints, it's best to use a taste-safe recipe that uses only food ingredients and things that you know that it's going to be okay for your children to put in their mouth and even eat. So you can either use food purees or you can make a special finger paint. For food purees, you might like to try pureed carrot, apple, pea or sweet potato. So if you don't want to use food purees, you can also easily make a really simple finger paint, and you can use either cornstarch, I think that's what it's called in America, or here in the UK we call it corn flour. So you're either going to use cornstarch or corn flour, and you're going to mix it with water. For older children who you know are not going to put the paint in their mouth, you can also make a thick finger paint from hair gel or from shaving foam. And I'll put a link to all of the recipes on the Nurture Store website in the video description, so whichever one you want to use, you can find the recipe and make them up for your children and, give them a try. Another really simple way to explore printmaking is by making your own set of stamps. You can use all sorts of things that you've already got around the house, so it doesn't need to cost any extra to do this art activity. On Nurture Store, we just absolutely love kids' activities that use free stuff. So you can start to make your own stamps by using wooden or plastic blocks. So, whatever blocks you've got that your children use to playing with, just grab a few to use them as your stamp bases. And if you haven't got any blocks, you can fold up thick pieces of card. So like the stuff that you get in delivery packages that are quite thick, just fold them over a few times to kind of make the shape of a block. Then you're going to want to find a variety of small items that you can fix onto the blocks using sticky tape or a glue gun. So something like buttons or coins that you can glue on. You could use some yarn or string and wrap them around the blocks and hold them in place with a little tape. You can cut out shapes or letters from pieces of thick cardboard and stick them to the blocks with glue. So once you've made your set of homemade stamps, you can set out some paint. I find it really nice to set them out on plates so that it's easy for your children to dip their stamps in. They want to dip them face down into the paint and then experiment with the patterns and the designs that they can create by printing their homemade stamps over a big piece of paper. Next up is a classic project that combines printmaking with maths to make symmetry prints. Do you remember doing this as a child? So you take a piece of paper and you fold it in half, and then you apply paint to just one side of the paper. And then you fold the paper back on itself and carefully press the blank side of paper down onto the paint. So you're kind of closing it like a card or like a book. You want to press the paper together so that both of the sides completely touch. And then you're going to peel the paper apart again to reveal your symmetrical print. Kids get so excited with this big reveal because you don't see what you've created until you peel the paper apart, and then you see the wonderful colours and you've made your print, so now you've got a symmetrical double image. It's a really great project to make butterflies out of. Next is an easy monoprinting art project where again you can make your own DIY stamps. Monoprinting is a type of printing where you can only make a print once. Mono is from the Greek language and means one, single or alone. So in this printing technique, you're going to create a set of unique images. An easy way to try out monoprinting at home is by using polystyrene, drawing images on it, covering it with paint and using that as your stamp. You can use polystyrene containers like the pizza bases or food trays that you get. Obviously you want to make sure it's completely clean, and if it's had any meat, any raw meat, anything like that on it, you're not going to want to use those food trays. But if you've got a nice clean pizza base, you can use that polystyrene to make stamps. So you're going to want to cut some smaller shapes out of the big polystyrene pizza base, squares, rectangles, circles, whatever you want. And you're going to use pencils or wooden skewers to draw a design onto each one of the shapes. Press your pencil down into the polystyrene and you can create dots, lines, shapes. A simple clear design works best. And then you're going to use a paintbrush or a brayer to apply paint onto your stamp, and then turn your stamp paint side down and press it onto a piece of paper. You can use your fingers or a clean brayer just to press gently over the back surface of the stamp, nice and evenly and gently, to leave a clear print on the paper, and then carefully peel back your stamp to reveal your monoprint. A very fun printing project that sets the tone that art is fun is to try printing with your child's toys. This emphasises the fun in creating art and invites your children to look at their favourite things in a different way. This toy printing activity is a great piece of art to frame as it captures your child's favourite toys in a unique way. The artists Bernard Prat, Hiroshi Fuji, David T. Waller and Robert Bradford all use toys to create art, and you'll find examples of their work to show your children in the lesson plan on the Nurture Store website, and I'll put a link in the video description to this printmaking lesson so that you can go through and show your children examples of these famous artists all using toys in their work. To create your own toy prints, you're going to want to lay out a large roll of paper on the table or on the floor. Set up some plates of paint in your child's favourite colours, and then invite your child to dip some of their toys into the paint and use them to make marks and prints on the paper. So if they've got dolls, they can go dancing over the paper, dinosaurs can go stomping, Lego bricks can be used for the printing, their favourite cars and trucks can go for a ride through the paint and then all over the paper. You don't want to stain any special toys, so do make sure that the paint you're using is washable and that your children are okay with them getting a bit messy while they've got paint on them before you wash them off. Now that we've had a look at a few printing projects using paint, we can expand our children's art experiences by using different materials. For example, using bubbles. These bubble prints are an art activity where the process of creating the art is definitely as much fun as the finished result. Every child I've done this with has loved blowing bubbles. It's important though that all the child artists understand the concept of blowing, not sucking through the straw that they're using to make their bubbles. And the best way that you can do it, to try out this technique of blowing and not sucking, is by using a glass of milk first. You can have fun, give them a glass of milk and show them how they can make loads of bubbles by blowing through the straw rather than sucking up the milk to drink. Okay, so to make your bubble paintings, you're going to want to place a shallow layer of bubble mix, or you could use dish soap and water, in the bottom of a plastic container. Squeeze in some paint and then use your drinking straws to blow up a big moundful of these colourful bubbles. You can gently press a piece of card over the top of the bubbles to take a monoprint. Don't press too hard and don't leave it on for too long, or you're going to end up with a soggy card and the bubble print will be lost. For our next printmaking adventure, you might like to try marbling. It's a very simple technique, and the results are unique with each print. So you're going to need shaving foam and you're going to need food colouring for this project. And you start off by squirting some of the shaving foam onto your dish. You only need a thin layer and this will act as your base. Then drop some food colouring on top of the shaving foam. We like to use Wilton food colouring gels for this part. You can add as many colours as you like and use a toothpick or a wooden skewer or a pencil to swirl the food colouring through the shaving foam to create a design you like. Then press a piece of paper or card onto the shaving foam and just smooth the paper or the card a little so that all of the surface comes into contact with the shaving foam. It only needs to touch for a second or two for the food colouring to transfer onto the paper. And then you carefully peel back the paper and place it face up on the table. You're going to use a piece of card or cloth to wipe away all the shaving foam and to reveal your marbled print. You can repeat the process again and again, adding more food colouring if you want to. And once your marbling surface becomes too full of colours, you can simply rinse off all the colour in the shaving foam and start the process again with a clean, shallow layer of shaving foam and some more colours, a food colouring gel on the top. We use our prints to make this gorgeous heart wall hanging around Valentine's Day, and if you'd like to have more details on how to do this, you'll find all the details in the link in the video description. Have you ever tried making prints using chalk? It's a bit like the shaving foam marbling, but trying this process using chalk on water encourages our children to think about all the different possibilities with their art. You're going to start them with a process they're familiar with, making prints, but then you're extending it and adapting a bit. And this is where we start to see how doing art with children helps them to think like scientists and to develop their own creativity, starting with something they're familiar with and taking it into variations and developing it further. So to print with chalk, you're going to want to fill a shallow dish with about 1 centimetre of water. And then you need to use a grater, you know, the kind that you use to grate cheese or nutmeg with. And you're going to grate a stick of chalk over the surface of the water. You can use more than one colour of chalk, and you're going to want to fill the whole space. You can experiment with colour combinations, and you can try layering one colour of chalk on top of another. And once you're happy with all the chalk that you've grated on the water, then you want to lay a piece of paper, piece of card down on the surface of the chalk. Then you're going to carefully peel back the paper and lay it on the surface to dry. In the article that I've got for you that I'll link in the video description for this lesson plan on the Nurture Store website, you'll find lots of ideas for how you can use this chalk print technique to make fish, flowers, and even a galaxy. You can also use tissue paper to make prints. You can do this in several ways to create a variety of designs, so this project encourages your children to experiment and to see which design they like best. It helps them to become both open-minded and to have their own opinion. One thing to note is that it's essential that you use the right tissue paper for this project. Much of the tissue paper that's sold for gift wrapping is colour fast. That's great for gift giving and packaging where you don't want any colour transfer, but it's not what we need for this project. For this art printing project, you need to make sure that you get bleeding tissue paper. And one place you can easily find that is on Amazon. So to print with the tissue paper, you're going to want to set out your card or some watercolour paper. You'll need some water and a selection of this bleeding tissue paper. Then place the tissue paper pieces onto your card to create your design. You can use a cloth or a sponge to dab water all across the surface of your card, taking care not to lift any of the tissue paper pieces. Alternatively, you could use a paintbrush to apply water only to the area of each piece of tissue paper and not putting any water at all on the surrounding card. Whichever water application method you're using, you then leave the card to dry on a flat surface. And once dried, you carefully peel off each piece of tissue paper to reveal the card underneath. And you'll find the colour from the tissue paper has bled onto the card to create a print. On Nurture Store, we always like to reuse as many materials as we possibly can, so you can even save all the pretty tissue paper pieces that you've peeled off for a future collage project. And there's a video coming up on collage art, so do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. My book, The Garden Classroom, is full of ideas you can use for creative arts and crafts all based on a garden theme. And one of our favourites is using leaves and flowers to make nature prints. It's a great project to do outdoors using a big roll of paper. You can do it in the yard, in the garden, or in forest school. You're going to want to roll out a long sheet of paper. We like to use wallpaper lining paper. And you can hold it in place with some plant pots so it doesn't all curl back up. And then take a walk around your garden classroom or your forest classroom to find flowers and leaves in all sorts of shapes and textures. Dip them into paint and see what prints and patterns you can make. This is a lovely art activity to do with a group of children, as everyone can make their own prints on the paper and create one big collaborative artwork. And did you know that you can even make prints from mushroom spores? This is a real cool project to try if you enjoy forest school lessons. Spores are the tiny seeds that fall out of mushrooms, and making a print of them can help identify what kind of mushroom they are, grow new mushrooms, and create beautiful art. Store-bought mushrooms will not work for this printmaking technique because they've already dropped all of their spores. So you'll need to gather some fresh mushrooms from the forest with a few different varieties if possible if you want to try this. If you're up for this adventure, you can find details of how to create the spore prints over on the Nurture Store website, and I'll put the link to the art lesson in the description of this video. I also like to use my art lessons to introduce children to famous works of art, and we've got lots of ready-made lessons on Nurture Store that you can use to give your children an introduction to art history. I've got 2 famous artist lessons that you can use with a printmaking activity. One lesson is about the Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama. You might already be familiar with her bold, colourful sculptures and installations that feature lots of dots. We can combine an art history lesson about Kusama with a printing project using different sizes of dots to make our version of her famous pumpkin sculptures. If you're interested in this, you can find the lesson plan on the Nurture Store website, and I'll put a link directly to it in the video description. The second artist lesson that I've got on Nurture Store that works very well with a printmaking technique is to learn about the African American artist Alma Woodsey Thomas. I think Woodsy Thomas is so inspiring and is a really great person for our children to know about. She taught in a black junior high school in Washington, D.C., and she taught in the same school and, in fact, the very same classroom for 35 years. And then, after her retirement from the school, she became a full-time artist. We can use the 3 key elements of her style to create our own printmaking project, focusing on her use of brightly coloured paint, concentric rings, and pattern made from repeating regular shapes. If you'd like to learn more about Woodsy Thomas or Kusama and try the projects, then help yourself to the links in the description box. You'll see I've made you 2 lesson plans. They've got biographies of Yayo Kusama and Alma Woodsey Thomas. You can see examples of their art. And I've also given you some question prompts so that you can get your children talking about the art. And then I talk you through step by step how to lead your children through the printmaking projects inspired by them. Well, that's 10 great printmaking projects you could try with your children this week. You can pick the project that's going to be best suited to you and what your kids enjoy doing. If they like messy sensory play, then they might like the marbling project, or they might like the fun of printing with their own toys. If they like making everything for themselves, you might want to pick the homemade stamps. Or if you've got little ones, they might be just the right age for the finger paints. I'd love to know which project you think is the best for your kids. So do leave me a comment to tell me which one you think they'd like best and which one you fancy trying first. Remember, you can find the details to all of the projects in the video's description. Please give a thumbs up to the video and subscribe to the channel so you can see the next art videos that are on their way. Coming soon, we have great ideas for art playdates and a masterclass on using clay. Until then, thanks so much for joining me and have a great week with your children.